Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something a little different. Usually, we take a topic, we tear it apart, we look at the data, and we try to make sense of the world.
Right.
But today, we are physically transporting ourselves, well, mentally at least, to the heart of the Eternal City. We are going to Rome.
And we aren't just going for a stroll. We are planting our feet right in front of one of the most recognizable, the most photographed and historically most chaotic landmarks on the face of the earth, the Trevi Fountain, or Fontana di Trevi, if we want to be proper about it.
It's funny you mention chaotic because that is usually the very first word that comes to mind when I think of the Trevi. I mean, elbows, selfie sticks, people throwing coins, guards blowing whistles.
Oh, whistles, yeah.
It's just total sensory overload.
It is, or rather it was. And that is why this conversation is just so timely for us to have right now. Today is February 21, 2026. And if you have been following the news out of Italy recently, you know that the experience of visiting the Trevi has just undergone this massive fundamental shift.
Yeah, and we are going to get into all of that, the tickets, the gates, the new rules that literally just dropped this month. But before we argue about whether, charging admission to a public fountain is a crime against culture or just a necessary evil, we really need to understand what we are actually looking at.
Absolutely.
Because looking through all the research you sent over this week, I realized something. I've seen 1,000 pictures of this thing.
Oh, sure.
I've probably seen it in 5 different movies. But I didn't actually know what it was.
That is the incredibly common experience.
Yeah.
It is consumed as an image. It's a vibe. It's a beautiful backdrop for a vacation photo.
Right.
But if you strip away the tourists and now the new ticket barriers, and you just look at the object itself, the scale is absolutely staggering.
It is massive. I was reading the dimensions, and I actually had to double-check them because I thought it was a typo.
It's big.
It stands 26.3 meters high. That is over 86 feet. And it's more than 49 meters wide. I mean, that is not a fountain in the sense of a cute little water feature in a park.
No. It is a facade. It is a massive Baroque machine made of travertine stone.
Ah.
And I use the word machine deliberately here.
How so?
Because it is a hydraulic engine that has been running in one form or another for millennia. It is a piece of ancient infrastructure that has been dressed up as a theater stage.
And that is really our mission for this deep dive. We want to move beyond the selfie. We want to unpack the engineering that keeps this thing running, the absolute soap opera of political drama that led to its construction.
Right, there is so much drama.
So much drama. And the modern-day controversies, from climate protests turning the water completely black to this brand-new pay-to-play system.
And we might even discuss a certain petty grudge carved in stone that has lasted over 200 years.
Oh, I am living for the petty grudge story, the spite face. We are definitely getting to the spite face.
We have to.
But let's start at the beginning, or I guess let's start with the name, Trevi. It sounds elegant. It sounds, ancient. What are we actually saying when we say that?
It's surprisingly literal, and maybe a little unglamorous when you translate it. The name Trevi is derived from the Latin trivium. It essentially means the intersection of 3 streets, Trevi.
So it's just a location marker,
Yeah.
like saying, the fountain at the 3-way stop.
That is exactly what it is. It locates the monument within the urban fabric of Rome. It sits right at the junction of Via de' Crocici, Via Poli, and Via del Marat.
Okay.
It's a directional tag that just stuck over the centuries. But while the name tells you where it is, the water tells you why it is there. And this is where we have to go deep into the past.
Right, because a fountain is nothing without a source. And this isn't just tap water circulating around from the city grid, is it? I mean, I know modern pumps are involved now, but historically, this has a much deeper significance.
Yes. Technically, today it is a recirculating system for environmental reasons, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But historically and structurally, the Trevi is the terminal point, the mostra of the Aqua Vergine.
Aqua Vergine, so virgin water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the modern iteration of the ancient Roman aqueduct, the Aqua Virgo.
And when you say ancient, we are talking way back. We aren't talking Renaissance Rome.
We are talking 19 BC.
Wow.
Yeah. This is where the history gets really interesting. This water source was supposedly located by Roman technicians with the help of a virgin.
A virgin. Is this a legend, or do we actually have documentation of this happening?
It is a legend, but one that the Romans took very, very seriously. You can actually see this exact story carved into the bas-reliefs on the fountain today.
Oh, really?
Yes, up at the top. The story goes that Roman soldiers, under the command of Marcus Agrippa, who was Emperor Augustus's right-hand man, a brilliant general and architect, They were out in the countryside, completely parched, looking for a reliable water source.
Right.
And a young virgin girl appeared out of nowhere and led them to a source of pure, bubbling water about 13 kilometers away from the city.
That seems, well, a little convenient, but 13 kilometers, that's about 8 miles. That doesn't seem that far in the grand scheme of Roman engineering. I mean, they built roads across entire continents.
It isn't far as the crow flies. But here is the thing about aqueducts that people often forget. They rely entirely on gravity.
No pumps.
No pumps whatsoever. You need a consistent, perfectly gentle slope from the source all the way to the destination. If the slope is too steep, the water pressure builds up too fast and blows out your stone channels.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. And if it's too flat, the water just stagnates and doesn't flow. So to get that water from the source to the city while maintaining that perfect microscopic gradient, they couldn't just go in a straight line.
They had to follow the topography.
Exactly. The aqueduct actually winds back and forth for about 22 kilometers or 14 miles.
So this water travels 14 miles underground just to splash out at this one specific spot.
Well, originally, it didn't splash out there for decoration. The Aqua Virgo was built to supply the baths of Agrippa. It was pure functional infrastructure. It was about public hygiene and leisure.
Okay, so it was feeding a massive Roman bathhouse.
Right. And the amazing thing is the longevity. This specific aqueduct served the people of Rome for over 400 years continuously.
But then the Dark Ages hit, right? I assume when the Roman Empire falls, the plumbing goes with it.
You assume correctly. The Gothic Wars specifically are what ruined it. In the 6th century, around 537 AD, the Goths, under a leader named Vitiges, laid siege to Rome. Now, if you are an invading army besieging a walled city, what is step one?
You cut the power, or I guess in this case, you cut the water.
Exactly. You thirst them out. They systematically smashed the aqueducts outside the city walls. Rome went from a thriving, advanced city of over 1 million people with flowing water, public baths, fountains too, to a dry, depopulated ruin almost overnight.
1 million people to nothing.
The population totally collapsed. People had to move down into the malaria-infested lowlands near the Tiber River just to have water to drink.
So the water to the Trevi area just stopped flowing completely.
For a time, yes.
Yeah.
But the Aqua Virgin is unique. Unlike many other Roman aqueducts, like those massive, towering Claudian aqueducts that you see the beautiful ruins of out in the Roman countryside.
The ones that look like big stone bridges.
Exactly. Unlike those, the Aqua Virgo runs almost entirely underground. It was much, much harder for the Goths to find and completely destroy.
Oh, I see. Because it was buried.
Yes. And because of that, it was so much easier to repair later on. We have records of papal restorations in the 8th century by Pope Adrian I and again in the 12th century. It just kept coming back to life.
That is incredible resilience. And I read something really interesting in the notes you sent about the water itself, the actual chemical makeup of it. It's calcium-free.
That is a crucial, crucial detail for the survival of the fountain we see today. The water from this specific source is remarkably soft. It is almost completely free of calcium carbonate.
Why does that matter for a fountain?
Well, if you think about typical hard water, what does it do to your plumbing? It leaves deposits. Limescale.
Oh, absolutely. My kettle at home is a total disaster because we have such hard water.
Right. Now imagine that kettle is a priceless, intricately carved Baroque statue. Over centuries, hard water would encrust the stone with thick white layers of calcium, blurring all the fine details and eventually destroying the carving entirely.
Wow, I never even thought about that.
The fact that the Aqua Virgin is calcium-free is thought to be one of the primary reasons the Trevi has lasted so well physically.
It's like the fountain has its own built-in anti-aging cream.
In a manner of speaking, yes. Though, as we will see a bit later, it still requires a lot of human intervention to stay beautiful.
Okay, so we have the pure water, we have the 3-street location, but the fountain we see today, the big, dramatic white stone explosion of statues taking up half a city block that isn't from 19 BC.
No, absolutely not. The Romans did not build what we look at today. The fountain we see today is a masterpiece of the 18th century. But the road to getting it built was, well, bumpy is an understatement.
Bumpy feels like a massive understatement based on this timeline. It sounds like a development hell that would make a modern Hollywood producer sweat.
It starts with Pope Urban VIII, right?
Yes, in 1629. At the time, there was a much more modest fountain there, just a simple basin where people could collect water. Pope Urban VIII looked at it and essentially said, "This is boring."
He wanted pizzazz.
He literally found it insufficiently dramatic. You have to remember, this is the absolute height of the Baroque era.
Right.
Subtlety was not in fashion. Everything had to be grand, theatrical, awe-inspiring. So who do you call when you want drama in 17th century Rome?
You call the heavy hitter Gian Lorenzo Bernini.
The absolute rock star of the era, the man who designed the massive piazza at St. Peter's Basilica.
Right. So Bernini gets hired. He started sketching renovations right away. He was looking at reorienting the entire square, making the fountain the stunning centerpiece. But then, as often happens in papal history, the Pope died.
And when the patron dies, the checkbook closes.
Exactly. The new Pope had different priorities, the project was completely abandoned, and Bernini just moved on to other things.
So Bernini's Trevi was never actually built?
Not directly, no.
Yeah.
But, and this is a key point that art historians love to debate, Bernini's touch is all over the final design.
Even though he didn't build it?
Even though he didn't build it. The theatricality, the use of naturalistic rock formations, blending with formal architecture, the way the water violently interacts with the stone. That spirit is very, very Bernini.
He set the tone.
He set the tone, even if he didn't lay the bricks.
So the project just goes dormant. It sits there, unfinished or underwater for a long time. When does it actually pick back up?
We jump forward a whole century. It's now 1730. Pope Clement XII is in charge, and he decides it's finally time to fix the Trevi situation once and for all. Rome needs a monument worthy of its history, so he organizes a competition.
I love a good architectural throwdown. It feels like this was the standard way to get major public works done back then. You know, whoever has the best drawing, you win the contract.
It was very popular. The Spanish Steps were also the result of a design competition. So all the top architects submitted their designs. And initially, the winner was a man named Alessandro Galilei.
Okay, Galilei wins. Case closed. I'm looking at my notes, and the architect of record is Nicola Salvi. Why are we talking about Salvi if Galilei won?
Because Galilei had a fatal flaw, a flaw that the Roman public simply could not forgive.
Was he a bad architect? Did the building fall down?
No, he was brilliant. His flaw was that he was a Florentine.
Oh no, the city rivalry.
You really cannot overstate the intense rivalry between Rome and Florence in this period. The idea that a Florentine architect, a guy from the city of the Medici, would be allowed to design the great Roman fountain caused a massive public outcry.
That is some serious civic pride. The citizens were basically saying we'd rather have no fountain than a Florentine fountain.
It was intense enough that the Pope actually capitulated. He was legitimately worried about riots in the streets.
Over a fountain.
Over civic honor. So he overturned the result of his own competition, sent Galilei packing, and awarded the massive commission to the runner-up, Nicola Salvi.
Because Salvi was Roman.
Born and bred in Rome.
Wow. Poor Galilei. Won the contest, lost the war. So Salvi gets the job. This is around 1732.
Right. Work begins in 1732. And Salvi, knowing the stakes, knowing he has to prove himself against this Florentine ghost, goes all in. But this wasn't a quick build.
How long are we talking? 5 years, 10?
30 years.
30 years, that's an entire career. That's a mortgage.
It was Salvi's life's work, literally. He spent his days down in the damp, dark aqueduct tunnels, supervising the stone cutting, breathing in travertine dust and moisture.
Oh, that sounds awful for your lungs.
It completely destroyed his health.
Yeah.
He died in 1751, with the fountain only half finished.
Oh, that is tragic. He poured his life into this thing and never even saw it completed.
He saw the structure rising, he saw the massive statues taking shape in the workshops, but he never saw the water flowing in its final form. He never heard the roar of the finished fountain.
That breaks my heart a little.
After Salvi died, a team of 4 different sculptors and architects had to carry the baton across the finish line. A man named Giuseppe Panini eventually took over as the lead architect and finished it in 1762.
Well, it clearly takes a village or a whole city to build a fountain of this magnitude. Let's look at what Salvi actually designed, because the visuals when we stand in front of it are just overwhelming. It's not just a sculpture, it's basically a building.
It is theatrical architecture at its absolute finest. The first thing you notice when you walk into the piazza is that the fountain isn't freestanding. Salvi integrated the entire structure into the rear facade of an existing building, the Palazzo Poli.
Right, it looks like the palace itself is just exploding into this cascade of water.
Exactly. He gave the palace a brand new facade with these giant Corinthian pilasters to link the stories together, creating this massive unified backdrop.
It frames the action.
It acts exactly like a proscenium arch in a theater. The building isn't just a building anymore. It's the permanent scenery for the play happening in the water below.
And center stage of that play is the big guy, the giant statue right in the middle. Now, I have to admit, until I read your notes, I always assumed this was Neptune. Big guy with a beard, lots of water. Gotta be Neptune.
A very, very common misconception. Almost everyone thinks it is Neptune, but it's actually Oceanus.
What's the difference? I mean, functionally, they're both water gods, right?
It's a specific distinction in Greek and Roman mythology. Neptune, or Poseidon, is an Olympian god. He carries a trident. He hangs out with dolphins. He's very interventionist.
Okay.
Oceanus, on the other hand, is a titan. He is much older. He is the ancient personification of the all-encircling river that the ancients believed surrounded the entire world.
Ah.
He doesn't just rule the sea. He represents the water or the universe itself. It's a much more elemental force.
He certainly looks incredibly commanding up there. He's riding a chariot.
A massive shell chariot. And it is being pulled by 2 hippocamps.
Hippocamps are seahorse.
Mythological seahorses, yes.
Yeah.
The front half is a muscular horse, and the back half tapers off into a fish with a scaly tail.
Yeah.
And if you look closely at them, they tell a very specific story. They aren't identical.
One looks pretty chill, and the other one looks like it's completely freaking out.
Precisely. The one on the left is rearing up, twisting its neck, very agitated. The one on the right is calm, obedient, stepping smoothly through the water. This is highly deliberate.
What does it mean?
It represents the changing moods of the sea. Sometimes the sea is tranquil and safe, and sometimes it is violent and destructive. Oceanus, standing firm in the center, is the divine force that presides over both extremes.
The taming of the waters.
That is the overarching theme of the entire monument,
Mm-hmm.
the taming of the waters. You also have these tritons, basically mermen guiding the horses, blowing into conch shells to signal the waves. It's a scene of dynamic action frozen perfectly in stone.
And flanking Oceanus, in those recessed niches on the side of the building, there are 2 female statues.
Yes, on one side you have the personification of abundance.
And what does she do?
She is spilling water out from a heavy urn. She represents the prosperity and agricultural wealth that a steady water supply brings to a city.
Makes sense. Water equals crops, crops equal money.
Exactly. And on the other side you have salubrity, or health. She is holding a small cup that a snake is drinking from.
A snake. That feels a bit ominous for a fountain about health.
It seems that way to us, but it's actually a classic symbol of medicine. Think of the medical caduceus you see on pharmacies or ambulances.
Oh, the staff with the snakes winding around it.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. The snake here signifies that the water from the aqua virgin is healthy, pure, and restorative. It's a guaranteed safety.
And above those statues,
You have the bas-reliefs we mentioned earlier. One side shows General Agrippa commanding his Roman soldiers to begin building the aqueduct, and the other side shows the young virgin pointing out the hidden spring to the thirsty men.
it connects the mythological drama below directly with the historical engineering reality up above.
Exactly.
It's literally a history lesson carved in travertine. But speaking of carving things in stone, we have to talk about the barber. This is absolutely my favorite detail in the entire research packet.
Yes, the Asso di Cop.
The Ace of Cups. Okay, listener, if you haven't noticed this, and you really have to look for it because there's so much going on the far right side of the fountain, sitting right on the parapet wall, there is a large, totally smooth stone vase.
It's quite large, yes.
It looks just like a goblet or a vase you'd see on a tarot card, but it doesn't match anything else around it. There's no twin on the left side. It's just sitting there on the wall.
It is completely out of place with the rest of the strict, symmetrical Baroque design. It totally disrupts the visual harmony of the balustrade. And the story behind it is just delightful.
So legend has it that during the construction, and remember, this construction took 30 years, so this was a long time to deal with this, there was a barber shop right on the corner of the piazza.
Facing the construction site.
Right, and the barber was, let's say he was a backseat driver.
He was a very vocal critic.
He had a direct view of the site from his shop window, and he constantly, day after day, complained about Salvi's design.
Loudly.
He would yell out, "The wall is too high," or "The statue is facing the wrong way," or "It's too dusty, you're taking way too long." He annoyed Nicola Salvi to absolutely no end.
You can just imagine the frustration. Salvi is pouring his life, his health, into this papal masterpiece, and every day he has to hear this local barber telling him he's doing it wrong.
That would drive anyone totally crazy. So Salvi, being an architectural genius, but also apparently a deeply petty king, decides to solve the problem permanently.
He didn't argue with the barber. He didn't yell back.
Yeah.
Instead, he sculpted this massive travertine vase, which, by the way, roughly resembles the type of container a barber might use for his tools or soap. And he placed it on the balustrade in a very, very specific spot.
He put it directly in front of the barber shop.
Exactly. He positioned it so perfectly that it completely blocked the barber's view of the fountain from his window.
So this barber, who had so many opinions about the fountain and how it looked, became the only person in the entire city of Rome who couldn't actually see it.
And the incredible thing is, the vase is still there. If you stand behind it today, right where the barber shop used to be, you cannot see the central statues of the fountain. It is a permanent 300-year-old monument to an 18th century grudge.
I just love that so much. It humanizes the whole thing. It's not just this unapproachable piece of high art. It's also, shut up, Luigi.
It really reminds us that these grand monuments were built by real people with all their daily flaws and frustrations.
So Salvi finishes, or rather, Panini finishes the fountain. It officially opens in 1762, and it immediately becomes an icon of the city. But over time, as tourism grows, it becomes something else too. It becomes a place of ritual, specifically the coins.
The coin toss. It is perhaps the single most famous tourist ritual in the entire world.
I think pretty much everyone knows the basic rule. Throw a coin into the Trevi Fountain, and you are guaranteed a return trip to Rome.
That is the core superstition, yes.
Yeah.
But the technique matters. You can't just chuck it in like you're skipping stones across a pond.
Right, you have to do it properly. You stand with your back to the fountain, you take the coin in your right hand, and you throw it over your left shoulder.
Correct. And keep your eyes closed if you really want to commit to the magic of the wish.
Do we actually know where this specific physical ritual started?
The precise modern over-the-shoulder toss was popularized significantly by the 1954 film Three Coins in the Fountain and the incredibly famous Frank Sinatra song associated with it.
Okay, so the movies did it.
Well, the movies codified it. But the fundamental idea of offering something of value to a water source is ancient. Roman soldiers used to throw coins into springs to appease the gods, the genius loci, or the spirit of the place to guarantee a safe journey home.
So it's a pagan ritual wrapped up in a Hollywood package.
Exactly. We've just adapted it for the modern tourism age.
And there are tiers to the wish, right? It's not just about coming back. I mean, 1 coin is a return to Rome. What's 2 coins?
2 coins means you'll find love with a beautiful Roman.
And 3 coins?
3 coins means you'll marry them.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful exactly how much loose change you throw in depending on your current relationship status.
Good advice. Definitely check your pockets before you toss. But the sheer volume of coins going into this water is staggering. I saw an estimate that said about 3,000 euro gets thrown in every single day.
That is the daily estimate, yes. It fluctuates with the seasons, obviously, but in 2016 they did a full tally, and the total for the year was 1.4 million.
1.4 million euros.
That is about 1.5 million US dollars in loose change, sitting at the bottom of a fountain.
That is incredible. It raises a very practical question, though. What happens to all that money? Does the city of Rome just scoop it up and keep it to, I don't know, pave the roads?
No, and this is a really important point that a lot of tourists don't know. The money is collected, literally vacuumed up with these long hoses every single morning by city workers before the crowds arrive.
Okay.
It is then taken away, carefully cleaned, counted, and 100% of it is donated to Caritas, which is a major Catholic charity.
So throwing a coin in the fountain is actually a philanthropic act.
It is. That money directly funds food banks, social programs, and support for the poor and marginalized in Rome. It basically completely funds a free supermarket for low-income families in the city.
That really makes me feel so much better about the whole superstition. It's not just a tourist trap, it's feeding people.
It does a tremendous amount of good.
Although, where there is €1.5 million sitting in a shallow pool of water, there is inevitably going to be crime.
Unfortunately, yes, human nature being what it is. There have been regular ongoing attempts to steal the coins over the decades.
How do you even steal it? Just run in and grab handfuls.
Well, for years there were these specialized, notorious thieves. There was one very famous local guy nicknamed D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan? Like the musketeer?
Yes, because he was so swashbuckling about it. He and others would jump in at night, or more creatively, they would use strong magnets attached to the end of long telescopic poles to just quietly fish the coins out from the edge.
Magnets on poles. That's some
Right.
serious dedication to petty theft.
It was a constant cat-and-mouse game with the Roman police for years. D'Artagnan even cut himself with a knife on national television once to protest being banned from the fountain.
Wow.
Now, with the new modern security measures and constant surveillance, it's much harder to get away with, but people certainly still try.
Well, speaking of people behaving dramatically around the fountain, pop culture, We cannot talk about the Trevi Fountain without talking about La Dolce Vita.
Federico Fellini's masterpiece,
Yeah.
1960. You simply cannot separate the physical fountain from that movie in the public imagination.
The scene with Anita Ekberg.
Yes. Wading into the freezing water in the middle of the night, in that stunning, strapless black velvet dress, calling out to Marcello Mastroianni, "Marcello, come here!"
It is probably the most iconic, instantly recognizable scene in Italian cinema, maybe even in world cinema.
It completely cemented the Trevi Fountain as a global symbol of desire, of the sweet life. It transformed it from a historical architectural monument into a deeply sensual one.
Right. It became the place where you go to feel young and beautiful and alive.
Exactly.
And pop culture just keeps revisiting it. You've got Roman Holiday, though obviously that was a few years earlier. You've got the Lizzie McGuire movie for the millennials.
Sabrina Goes to Rome.
And even Lego.
Yeah.
They released a massive, intricate architectural set of the fountain just last year in March 2025.
Which really speaks to its enduring global recognition. If you could be instantly recognized as a pile of gray and blue plastic bricks, you have truly made it as a cultural icon.
But all of this attention, the movies, the millions of coins, the Lego sets, the millions of tourists, it all takes a toll. The fountain is made of stone, and stone degrades.
It does. Travertine is a remarkably porous stone.
Yeah.
Smog from the Roman traffic, acid rain, extreme weather fluctuations, and just the sheer physical vibration of the city center all deeply affected.
So they have to maintain it.
Constantly. There have been several major interventions over the last few decades. There was a significant cleanup in 1988 to remove intense smog discoloration. Then again in 1998, they really had to scrub the stonework and completely overhaul the aging pumps.
But the really big one, the one that made international headlines, was much more recent, the Fendi restoration.
Yes, sponsored by the Lingerie Fashion House. Fendi is a historic Roman brand, and in 2013, they announced a massive €2.2 million sponsorship to save the fountain.
Wow, 2.2 million.
The restoration itself ran from 2014 to 2015. It was the most thorough, microscopic cleaning and repair job in the fountain's entire history.
What did they actually do?
They cleaned every single inch of the stone, removing decades of grime. They repaired microscopic cracks where water was seeping in and freezing, which causes the stone to spall and break. And crucially, they installed over 100 state-of-the-art LED lights.
Ah, so the night view we see now, that really dramatic, sharp lighting that's relatively new, that's thanks to Fendi?
Entirely.
Okay.
It completely redefined the nocturnal experience of the fountain. Before that, it was somewhat dimly and unevenly lit. Now, the new lighting specifically accentuates the high Baroque drama. It highlights Oceanus's muscles, the movement of the horses, the cascading water.
It makes it look like a movie set again.
Exactly.
But, as we know, not all modern interactions with the fountain have been about preservation or lighting design. Which brings us to a very controversial event, May 21, 2023.
The Blackwater protest.
This was intense. You sent me the videos of this, and it is shocking to watch. Activists from a group called Ultima Generazione Last Generation waded right into the basin of the fountain and just dumped liquid charcoal into the water.
It turned the crystal blue water completely opaquely black, almost instantly.
What was the point? I mean, why target the Trevi Fountain?
Their core message was about the urgency of the climate crisis. They were specifically citing the devastating recent flooding in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy.
Right, which had just happened.
Yes, they were arguing that continued reliance on fossil fuels was directly driving these extreme, deadly weather events. They attacked a beloved heritage site specifically to gain the absolute maximum global visibility for that message.
The logic being?
They wanted to force a conversation. Their stated point was, essentially, you are outraged about a historic stone fountain getting dirty, but you don't care that the actual planet is dying and people are drowning in floods.
Ryan Mao, a former NOAA scientist, was quoted in the material calling them climate eco-anarchists. And it certainly grabbed the headlines they wanted. But did it work? Or did it just make the general public incredibly angry?
It deeply polarized people. Some saw it as a desperate, necessary wake-up call. But practically speaking, for the city of Rome, it caused significant damage, or, at the very least, significant cost and effort.
Because, as you mentioned earlier, it's a recirculating system. You can't just skim the charcoal off the top like leaves in a pool.
No, you absolutely cannot. That incredibly fine charcoal powder immediately contaminated the entire complex hydraulic system. It got sucked right into the pumps, into the underground pipes, and into the porous structure of the travertine stone itself.
So they couldn't just filter it out?
They had to completely shut the fountain down, drain it, and replace 300,000 liters of water.
300,000 liters. That is a massive waste of fresh water for a protest that is supposed to be about saving the environment.
And that was exactly the sharp criticism leveled by Rome's mayor, Roberto Gualtieri. He immediately noted the bitter irony and the immense wastefulness of the cleanup effort required.
He wasn't happy.
He was furious. He called it a direct attack on our common cultural heritage. It really highlighted this incredibly sharp tension we have today between preserving the artifacts of the past and the deep anxiety people feel about the future.
Which perfectly brings us right up to the present day. The ultimate tension between preserving the physical monument and managing the sheer, overwhelming number of people who desperately want to see it. We are in February 2026, and the rules of the game have completely changed.
Yes. This shift has been coming for a very long time. The overcrowding at the Trevi had become not just annoying, but genuinely dangerous and completely unpleasant.
It was a mosh pit.
A literal mosh pit, not a viewing experience. You couldn't stop and admire the Baroque architecture. You could only see the back of the head of the sweaty person shoved up against you. The pickpocketing was out of control.
So after years of debate, what finally happened?
On February 2, 2026, literally just a couple of weeks ago, the city officially pulled the trigger and introduced a strict ticketing system.
A ticket to see a public fountain. It just sounds wrong, somehow. It feels counterintuitive to what Rome is.
It's important to clarify. It's a ticket to access the lower basin.
Oh, okay. The steps going down.
Right. The sunken area closest to the water, where you actually stand to throw the coins. You can still technically see the fountain for free from the street level up above, looking down. But if you want to get close, if you want the classic experience, you need a ticket.
Okay, let's unpack the actual logistics of this. How much does it cost?
For non-residents, so tourists, it is too. Locals, residents of Rome, get in for free.
That seems like a very smart political move. If they tried to charge Romans to see their own fountain, we'd have another 1730-style riot on our hands.
Exactly. It was a mandatory political concession. This is essentially a micro-tourist tax, pure and simple.
And do I have to, book a specific time on an app?
Yes. Tickets are strictly required from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Mondays and Fridays, and from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on all other days. You have to book a specific timed entry slot.
What happens after 10 p.m.? Does it close entirely?
No, after 10 p.m. the physical barriers are opened, and access goes back to being free and unregulated. So the late-night owls can still have that spontaneous La Dolce Vita moment without scanning a QR code.
€2 really doesn't sound like that much money, but with the sheer volume of visitors we're talking about.
It adds up incredibly fast. Alessandro Onorato, who is the city councilor for tourism, estimates this new system will generate over €6 million every single year.
6 million every year. Where exactly does that money go? Is the city just pocketing it?
No, it is ring-fenced. It primarily pays for the professional stewards who are now hired to manage the crowd flow. There are about 25 of them working shifts. It also goes directly into a fund for ongoing restorations of the stone.
Okay, that makes sense.
But interestingly, it also heavily subsidizes free access for local Romans to visit other museums and cultural sites across the city.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So the tourists paying too at the Trevi are effectively paying for local residents to go to indoor museums for free.
That's actually a really clever bit of urban policy. It's wealth redistribution via a Baroque fountain.
They tested this concept very carefully. They ran a strict pilot program back in December 2024, right after a 3-month maintenance period. They capped the visitors at exactly 400 people at a time in that lower basin.
And I guess it worked.
It seems they decided it worked well enough and generated enough positive feedback regarding crowd safety to make it permanent now in 2026.
But this fundamentally changes the nature of the space, doesn't it, from a philosophical standpoint?
It fundamentally does. And this is where we have to look at the much bigger picture of European tourism. The Trevi, historically, was built at the intersection of 3 regular streets. It was deliberately designed to be stumbled upon.
Right. You're wandering through Rome, you turn a corner in a tight, dark little alley, and boom, this massive, roaring white mountain of water is just suddenly there in front of you.
It was an organic part of the urban flow. It belonged to the street.
And now it's a gated destination.
Exactly. By putting up glass barriers and scanning tickets, you were essentially turning a public piazza into an open-air museum. You were signaling this is no longer a street, this is an attraction.
Right.
It certainly manages the crowds. It absolutely protects the delicate stone from vandalism. But does it completely kill the spontaneity that made it magical in the first place?
It's the museumification of the city. We are turning ancient Rome into a heavily curated Disneyland.
It raises a profoundly difficult question for cities in the 21st century. In an era of cheap flights and mass global tourism, where literally millions of people want to stand in the exact same spot at the exact same time,
Yeah.
can we actually afford to have open, completely free public monuments anymore? Or is the only realistic way to save them from being loved to death to deliberately restrict our own freedom to enjoy them?
It's such a tough trade-off. On one hand, you save the physical stone, but on the other, you might just lose the soul of a monument entirely.
Or perhaps, and to play devil's advocate here, perhaps you actually save the experience. Because being physically crushed by 5,000 screaming people waving selfie sticks isn't exactly a soulful, transcendent experience either.
That is a very, very fair point. If you've ever tried to get to the edge of the Trevi in the middle of July, you know it's not exactly romantic. It's a physical battle.
Right. If you have a ticket now, and there are only 400 people down there with you, you can actually hear the sound of the water. You can actually see the detail on the horses.
You can appreciate the art.
So perhaps this new gated system, despite the annoying fee and the loss of spontaneity, actually restores some of the original dignity to Oceanus in his chariot. It finally gives the fountain the physical space it needs to breathe.
That's a fascinating way to look at it. The monument is finally getting some breathing room. What a journey this single spot in Rome has had. From a pure Roman water source found by a virgin in 19 BC, to a ruined aqueduct, to an absolute soap opera of Baroque egos,
Salvi and his spite vase.
Salvi and his amazing spite vase, to a Hollywood movie star with Anita Ekberg, to a charity fund collecting €1 million a year, to a site of radical climate protests, and now, finally, a ticketed, regulated venue. The Trevi Fountain just keeps evolving with the times.
And through all of that, the water just keeps flowing, just as it has since Agrippa's time. The popes change, the politics change, the ticketing rules change, but the gravity pulling that calcium-free water from 14 miles away remains exactly the same.
Well, listener, the next time you are in Rome physically or just digitally exploring, do not forget to book your time slot and bring your €2. And maybe, if you're standing on the right side, check to see if that barber's giant stone vase is still blocking the view.
Oh, it definitely will be. Nicola Salvi built that thing to last.
Thanks for joining us to explore this massive topic. We really hope this gives you something to chew on regarding how we preserve the things we love without destroying what makes them special in the process. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Arrivederci.